Hello and welcome to Required Reading, a podcast that revisits the most impactful books from our childhood. I'm your host, Erin Bowles. I'm an actor and I am on strike, so I won't promote what I'm working on. Adriene Vento is an art director, poet, and avid Sims 4 player. When they aren't working their official job, they are making ebook covers for fan fiction or overusing the phrase, "Don't threaten me with a good time." They're one of my favorite people in the whole world. I love them so much. Hi, Adriene.
Hi, I'm happy to be here. Also, I think I just pissed my pants a little because you said most impactful book, and I don't know if that's what we're going to be covering today, but we sure are going to be covering a favorite.
Today's book is Cupid Doesn't Flip Hamburgers from The Adventures of the Bailey School Kids, written by Debbie Dadey and Marcia Thornton Jones, published in 1995. It's the 12th book of the series. Debbie is from Morganfield, Kentucky. Marcia is from Joliet, Illinois, and the illustrator Stephen Gurney is from Pennsylvania, and I don't have anything more to say to him. He has his own work. Debbie was a first grade teacher and a librarian, and the two are still writing. There are over 80 Bailey School Kids books. They're still making them. They're making graphic novels, and she markets her work as for reluctant readers. She has a really fun website. It seems like early web design is her thing and she really enjoys it. And Marcia has one little page where she's like posing for Sears with like her dog. I'll send it to you because it's just cute.
I was like, I really want to see this.
It's so cute. And
Also, why is it my new dream to redesign a website for Debbie and Marcia? She's listening to this.
Debbie,
I will do work for you.
it's the 12th book in the series. The very first was Vampires Don't Wear Polka Dots in 1991. They met while they were both working at the same elementary school in Lexington, Kentucky, which is where my dad's from. And Dadey was a librarian and Jones was a third grade teacher. And they said, quote, "We figured if we sprouted horns 2 feet long, fangs the size of swords, and blew smoke out our ears, the kids would finally behave and pay attention to us."
So cute.
And a little bit about 95. Top songs include Gangsta's Paradise, Waterfalls, and Kiss from a Rose. Top movies include Batman Forever, Apollo 13, and Toy Story. Major events that year, Selena is murdered. eBay is founded. O.J. Simpson is found not guilty. And the FDA approves the first protease inhibitor to treat HIV and AIDS.
And most importantly, I was conceived. My parents were banging.
So what's your story with this book? How did it come to you?
That's a really good question. I don't know where the book came from, but the cover is like viscerally burned into my memory, and I'm pretty sure I own all of these books.
Really?
Or probably not all of them, but I owned a lot. Like I went in while I was revisiting this for doing this show. I went down a rabbit hole of like looking at all of the ones that they've published, and I'm like pretty sure I read all of them. And my other favorite is Dragons Don't Cook Pizza.
Wow.
I think I had an obsession with food. I have a feeling that the reason that this book came to be was because even though I was raised in New York, every summer I spent the summer with my grandma, who was super Mormon. I was only allowed to read like approved literature.
Oh.
And I think this fell into the category of approved literature that I could like get from the library. So this was me. Also, I was like really struggling with dyslexia when I was a kid. So I'm pretty sure this was like me reading like slowly and methodically and like doing all my exercises.
Do you remember maybe how old you were?
I would probably bet that this was like 6 or 7, maybe a little older. And I definitely revisited them. Also, all of the illustrations in this book are like core memories.
Yeah.
Like I didn't know that I knew these images so well.
Oh, I'm so glad. I never read these. I was like aware of them, but what I'm realizing through doing this podcast is that I was a bookish kid who did not read a lot. I was mostly watching TV, which like ended up working out in the end.
So you're a poser.
I am. And do you remember how did you feel about it when you were reading it as a kid? Like, what do you also remember going into it?
So I think this started my fascination or like addiction to seeing the sort of like mythical or fantastical in our universe. So it's
Mhm.
not like it's a fantasy where we're set in Middle Ages with dragons and whatever. It's the idea that these characters like Cupid or like a vampire, like Frankenstein, actually exist in our day to day. And I think that has been a theme that has followed me throughout what I love about every book and like my reading journey, because I became such a big Percy Jackson fan
Mhm.
for the same reason. It's like, oh, you don't know if someone around you is like secretly suspicious. And I think secretly suspicious, it's more fun to think like, ooh, maybe that person's Cupid than like, oh, that person's about to commit a crime,
Right.
which is like a very New York kid mentality. I was like,
Yes.
anyone can be a criminal. So I think it was more fun to be like, Cupid could be anywhere.
Mhm. I love that, and I love you mentioning Percy Jackson. For those listening, Adrienne and I met in college, and we were writing partners with Brandon Ginturo, who's going to come on the podcast, and yesterday told me that he picks Percy Jackson for his
Oh,
book. So
Brandon.
I told Adrienne this when I was giving Brandon the list of titles. Brandon said, God, whoever chose Cupid Doesn't Flip Hamburgers, that's a go one.
My
I just love
boy.
us. I love us.
I love
Um,
us too.
so I guess a quick summary of the book. I'll just read the back of the book. There are some pretty weird grown-ups living in Bailey City, but could the new cook in the school cafeteria really be Cupid cooking up love potions for lunches? The Bailey School kids are going to find out. And I got my book from Thrift Books, and on the back cover, someone wrote moron.
Oh no.
It's my favorite thing.
Mine says Mrs. White in the cover.
Wow.
So I got a kinder kid than you.
I love used books though. They're for
Yes.
that reason specifically.
So when you read the description
Mhm.
of it, like, let me tell you, this is book core memory. The images, everything about it burned into my head except for the plot. When I was reading it, I don't know what's wrong with me. First of all, I'm a writer, so I probably shouldn't have struggled with this. I was like, I have no idea where this book is going. So that was just a fun little adventure for me.
So, not having read the series, is it always these four kids?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it might be.
Mhm.
Mostly because like the kid in this who is like sort of the focus,
Yeah.
Eddie, I feel like I remember him or am spiritually connected to him. And
Yeah.
I feel like he might be in Dragons Don't Cook Pizza,
Mhm.
but I would not swear on my life to those facts.
That's fair. That was one of my other notes is Eddie always up to some shit? Because he seems like a kid who would have like is
Yeah.
really out to cause me anxiety and just
Okay.
mess things up.
I also don't think Eddie is like a very good moral lesson for children.
Yeah.
This whole like the whole underlying lessons of these books are a little sus.
It is like I've got to figure out something that someone does not want to tell me about an adult in my
And
life.
I mean, literally, I will bow down to Debbie and Marcia, like no disrespect, no hate at all. But this is kind of sexual harassment, the book.
Yeah. One of my big questions was like, why are we kind of like romanticizing third graders? And it's not just Debbie and Marcia. I think it's like
It's
a cultural
everyone.
thing. But like why I was wondering if I had not had the mentality set up that romantic love is like the end all be all goal, who would I be and how different and how we're like relaxed and self-assured would I be?
It's just weird because I genuinely don't think I was thinking about love when I was
Mhm.
in 3rd grade. Like, I was like, "Oh, love is for Barbie or love is for adult
Mhm.
figures in my life," but not for me, and it just was so weird that this book was all about, like, kids under the influence of love potions.
Yeah.
Also, there's this part in the book and tell me if I'm getting ahead of
No.
podcast at all. There's this part in the book where I think Howie
Mhm.
is, spoiler alert, guys, Howie is being fought over by
Yeah.
Melody and what's her name? And Carrie, no, not Carrie.
Liza?
Melody and Liza, and they're like all supposed to be a trio of friends, and then they both get the love potion and fall in love with him, and they're like, you have to choose.
Mhm.
And first of all, I was like, this is messed up that we're like pitting girls against each
Yeah.
other. And then second of all, maybe this is just because I am polyamorous, but I'm like, this is really dramatic.
Yeah.
Like, you can all just be together. I
Mhm.
mean, not because they're third graders, but like, this is a monogamous agenda.
Yeah. With Carrie pursuing Eddie, I thought it was like kind of flipping gender roles on its head as like a girl pursuing. Also, one of my favorite parts was that Carrie's dad owned the Bailey City Bank. And I was like, oh, you tell me everything I need to know right there.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, we know who Carrie is.
Yeah, this is such an effective describer. So they're in third grade. What was third grade like for you?
Third grade for me was okay. I think I was diagnosed with dyslexia in third grade probably. And so I was doing a lot of the like separate classes for people who needed more help or different accommodations. And I was struggling socially a little because I was just a quiet kid.
Right.
And I was talking to my mom about who I was in like third grade, fourth grade. And she said, oh, well, I don't really remember much, but what I do remember is one of your teachers said to me, Adriene is going to do really well in college and not before then.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my goodness, okay.
And you did very well in college.
She was right.
I feel like
me.
A tricky year. I feel like it's a year where things start changing.
Yeah, because you have to like learn more than just the alphabet.
Yeah.
You have to start like connecting different pathways of knowledge. And then I feel like once you start connecting things in life, it's over. Like you start seeing too much of the world.
There's cursive, there was multiplication for the first time. I was at a new school and I was friends with the one other new girl, and I would always go over to her house because it was right next to the school. And I remember her mom just being naked a lot, but she would also pull me aside and be like, thank you for tutoring her. And I was like, I did not know I was here to do that. No one told me that. We were talking about crushes. I know I had a crush like every single year, but I think it was like, it's because I had to. Like it was.
Yes, you had to pick your crush.
Yeah, and so you would have something to talk about. Like in third grade, I had a crush on a fifth grader on my bus who had a mohawk that was occasionally dyed to look like the flag of America.
Oh, that's bold.
And his name was Skylar, and he was a patrol, and he had the little belt and stuff.
Wait, Skylar seems like a main character.
I know. And because I like didn't go to that school anymore and I went to schools after that, like not in my neighborhood, I have no idea where he ended up.
I'm so glad we're doing this because I just get to hear wild stories.
Yes.
From you, and I love that. And here's the most deranged thing I think I did. At some point in around somewhere between third and fifth grade, I came across some form of media where some girl was like writing all the names of the people that she had crushes on, like on her wall. And I was like, that's what I have to do. But I was a weird kid and I like even numbers. And so I just started inventing crushes on people and I would like rationalize them to myself. And so in my old bunk bed, I had like a list of boys' names. And I know I had crushes on some of them, but I definitely didn't have crushes on all of them.
I had a crush on the same guy all through high school. And it was very much because if I had a crush, my friends had something to talk about. So I could like become the center of the conversation.
We love that. Was Skylar your first crush?
No, my first crush was first and second grade was a guy named Matthew who had a lisp.
Love.
I moved after second grade. I used to live next to a little boy named Luke who was like a year or two younger than me. If I had lived there longer, my parents definitely would have like tried to set us up or something. There was like,
God.
and there was a moment when I was in high school, I think, and I was in CVS and I like ran into him and his mom and I didn't recognize him.
Oh my God.
Nothing happened.
Nothing happened, but everything felt different.
Yeah.
My first crush was in first grade, and it was on two people at the same time, Aiden and Sarah, and they were fraternal twins,
No.
male, female. And I came home and I told my mom, I'm gonna marry Aiden and Sarah. I'm gonna play Legos with Aiden and I'm gonna braid hair with Sarah, and we're all gonna live in a house and I'll be married to both of them, but they won't be married to each other because they're siblings and that's weird.
Poly from day one.
Poly from day one, also very heteronormative activities,
Well,
judgment. But I will say, like, the man liked the boy liked Legos, and I liked the boy and Legos. One of the things that I can't stop thinking about after reading this book, and honestly, I would love Debbie and Marcia to weigh in. What is the mechanics of the magic system in this universe? And why do the pins work the way they do, and how do they choose their mark? Like, who likes who? Is it special, like, straight magic? Like, why aren't there any people in love who are the same gender?
Especially Liza, and I didn't think about this until now, but Liza and Melody both eating the cookies at the same time, it makes way more sense that they would like each other. Way more sense.
Like, that was lesbian coded.
Yeah, stretching the bounds of logic a little bit to be straight still. But also, how do you feel about Valentine's Day? Because I don't care about the holiday, but I love the aesthetic.
Yes, that's the perfect way to describe it.
As Eddie was talking about how gross the cafeteria was, I was eating it up. I was like, yes, yes, yes.
Yes, and I think what I loved about this book as a kid was there was something very, like, visceral about the descriptions, especially of food, and I've noticed this about myself where anytime a book goes really in detail about what they're eating, I, like, gobble that shit up. I'm like, yes, give me world building, give me everything. I can't tell you enough how every time I've eaten cherry jello since I read this book for the first time, I think of this book.
Oh, wow.
Every time. The grip that this book has on cherry jello for me is insane.
I wrote it down because I said, what is in this child's lunch? And it's a slice of meatloaf, one slice of tomato, one slice of an apple, and jello.
Could you imagine if in elementary school you had been given a slice of tomato? I would have cried.
I would not understand it at all. And on that, I was never taken to be introduced to our new lunch lady.
Right.
That baffled me.
Yeah, I know. They were like, this is the new lunch lady. And I was like, well, okay, we know who Cupid is.
Yeah, I remember they all groan when she says we have to go meet the lunch lady. And I was like, kids love not doing work. Kids love going places, taking breaks.
If they were like, you can do math or you can meet the lunch lady, I'd be like, field trip.
Exactly. I noticed I put flags on it. There are a couple times where Eddie, he speaks in these like non-sayings that sound like, the best way I can describe it is
they're like half an idiom.
Yes. Like a grandfather during the Depression who got his like brain in a blender, which I also, as I was thinking about that, I was like, oh, that's how I talked sometimes in college. I would like watch too many old Hollywood movies and kind of be like, hey there. But he says, I think this lady fell off the old holiday wagon before her brain was fully cooked.
Yeah, that's like 8 different sayings.
And on the next page, he goes, there's nothing good about overdosing on red. That new cook may need surgery to remove all of these hearts, and I'm just the doctor to handle it.
I love the aversion to red dye. Like, that's really setting up like our parents' generation of like red dye 40 is a sin. Eddie cracked me up. So I read this book 2 nights ago to like refresh, and I read it with my girlfriend and we read it out loud, and I read everything that wasn't dialogue and she did voices for everything that was dialogue. and there were definitely like character choices made. So I think I really loved that, added a layer to it. They were all very distinct characters, but like what I liked is it reminded me of other books in the series that I had read, like Mrs. Jeepers is a reoccurring character because she's the teacher that's a vampire.
Yeah, the
who
vampire.
wears polka dots.
Yeah, I noticed they're very mean to each other.
The kids?
Yeah, for four best friends. At least the girls are. They say like, Godzilla is more lovable than you, Eddie, which is maybe true, but not something you should say.
They're kind of mean to each other.
Liza says all you deserve are thorns and spinach.
Dang.
I know.
But the spirit of the book is a little mean, or maybe I'm reading into it because I have major beef with how the lunch lady was described. Like, every single thing about her was a comment on her size or weight. And just because I know the context of like 1995, it was definitely derogatory.
Yeah.
No one else was described as like Mrs. Jeepers, that skinny little twig vampire.
And to the point where the kids were commenting on it also. It was a really toxic environment at the Bailey School.
But I will say, I don't know that it was malicious intent on like the author's part. I think they were just trying to transpose the characteristics of like a fat baby Cupid onto a woman, like a middle-aged lunch lady woman.
Yeah.
But I do think it comes off in poor taste, and it just reminded me of like so many books made at that time, like Harry Potter, all women who weren't desirable were made to be heavyset.
It's very 90s, and I think the way it looks at pretty much everything.
I feel like we have to like post a picture of the illustrations when this episode comes out.
Oh, absolutely.
The one where she's sitting on a stool, it's like on page...
Oh, that one's awful. Near the end?
Yes, on page 61, she's like sitting on a stool. It's the weirdest angle, and Eddie is crawling on the floor. I was just like, what is this?
Yeah, and it makes her butt look very big, is the focus, is the center point of it, with Eddie with a bag in his teeth crawling underneath.
It just doesn't feel right.
It kind of comes up randomly in the end, in this thing about she belongs high on a mountain, like way in the clouds.
I don't understand that like line of thinking.
I guess Cupid flies, but
I guess
it's really stretching it.
I'm also curious, like, how did they decide who gets to stay and who goes? Because like Mrs. Jeepers gets to stay throughout all the books, but is it like, I feel like a vampire would be a problem at a school, although maybe she doesn't like feed off of the children, but why can't Cupid stay?
Yeah, and I wonder if it's because of the moral quandaries of giving love potions to students. Maybe they drew the line, but I don't know the rest of the book series. So I didn't notice this until I was reading it back. Her name is Mrs. Rosenbloom, which I thought was great with Kiss from a Rose, Now That You're Rosenbloom. Like you were saying, the mechanics of the magic. So Miss Jeepers has a brooch, and Miss Rosenbloom has this pin. But it has to be like a double dose of pin and potion. Cookie. Yeah.
It kept saying Mrs. Jeepers' eyes flashed. What does that mean?
Like a cat? Like, maybe, I don't know.
Like a glint?
Yeah, like they go from like green to really green or something.
I kind of would love to play like a tabletop RPG set in the universe of the Bailey School kids. Like, I want to be a crabby little third grader figuring out who's sketch in my school.
Yeah, especially like I loved her dad owns the bank detail so much, and I think the characters are like very clearly rendered, like the bully, and there's a moment where they kind of touch on the he's bullying you because he likes you bullshit.
And Eddie's grandma is surprisingly fleshed out, even though she makes like a 2-page appearance.
Yeah. And she is also kind of, you see where Eddie maybe gets the non sequiturs. Because He says, we've had enough cookies to last a lifetime. And she goes, I guess what they say is true.
And we're like, I don't really follow, but okay.
No, Grandma. It's sugar and spice. And I love the playing potions and mixing things together. I love that.
It is probably one of the most vile combinations of ingredients I've ever experienced. Like, I was reading it and I felt slightly ill.
Vinegar, lemon juice, garlic powder, black pepper. I mean, garlic powder and black pepper sound very nice.
It's the ketchup that they add at the end for me.
I don't understand ketchup. That shit's nasty to me.
Oh, see, this is where we're going to have to beef. I fucking love ketchup.
Okay.
I have a lot of opinions about ketchup. Mainly that Heinz ketchup is the only ketchup that's valid and every other ketchup is fake, with the only exception being fancy ketchup in the McDonald's packets. Especially if they're warm from a car. Ooh. I love a thick, warm ketchup.
I think that's something that freaks me out about ketchup is the runniness of it often.
I don't like when the clear juice from ketchup. Like, no, you have to shake that.
Yeah.
I think this weird potion scene, it weirds me out that in order to get the consistency of cookie dough, they mix all of these liquids together, and then they're like, you know what will really make this cookie dough consistency?
More liquid.
Mustard. I was like, God. What kind of mustard are you using?
You could have asked Grandma. I think she might have.
Grandma could have helped.
Yeah, I think she's up to some mischief if needed be. And I love this idea of playing potions, but I don't think I really ever did it growing up. And I know I had like a Harry Potter toy set that had like mixed these things together and they'll fizzle or something. I love mixing things together and seeing what happens. I love just like seeing what happens if you leave something alone for a while.
That's me. That's how I operate. I'm just like, everyone leave me alone for a while. We'll see how it goes.
Me too. I have been in full hibernation since we wrapped season 2, which was October.
Oh my God. Yeah. I didn't quite play potions, although when I would stay in Kentucky with my grandma, she had this like jacuzzi bathtub, and I would like to pretend that I was a witch, but I was sitting in the cauldron.
I don't think I've ever loved anything as much as I love that.
And one time, my cousin Paris and I were in the bathtub, and like we were wearing bathing suits and we were pretending to be witches in a cauldron, mixing stuff. And we got crazy with the bubbles. And because it's a jacuzzi, the bubbles started growing so much they overflowed the bathtub. They were up to the ceiling. They were like going out the door. Like, I was scared of drowning. Like, we couldn't find our way through the bubbles. My grandma was so mad at us. I'll have to try and find the picture of me.
Oh God.
So I can send it to you. That's when I learned that you don't put, I'm pretty sure it was Dawn dish soap in a jacuzzi.
I think that might have been why I didn't play potions a lot is the anxiety and things cost money and don't be wasteful. But I have a very clear memory. 4th or 5th grade, my friends walking. There used to be a golf course right behind my house, and there was which is not very fancy. We had a chain link fence saying don't come in here. So we would walk along it and had a Tupperware and would get berries from trees, just wild berries, and smash them up and then paint weird symbols on trees.
I love that. You probably freaked someone out.
Exactly. In hindsight, I'm like, what kind of yellow jacket shit were we up to?
There's just something about kids that are like drawn to creepy and weird situations. Like, one of the other book I thought about asking you to read on this was The Boxcar Children, which I loved. And when we were on the farm, my cousins and I would play Boxcar Children, and we would be out in like an abandoned train car because our farm was really big but also like a little junky.
Yeah.
And we would be like, our parents dead, our resources none, the weather bad, we are on the brink of death. And I like pull my little cousin who's like 4 or 5 years younger me aside. I'd be like, you have to go get berries for the family or we're gonna die. Don't come back until you have a full bucket of berries. And then I just send him on his way, and I'd like chill, being like, and I was like, what kind of fucking system is this?
And what age were you?
I was probably like 11 or 12.
Oh my gosh,
I was notoriously like a shit starter and just very innocently manipulative child. My cousin was telling me that they still don't play Monopoly because they're traumatized by how I played Monopoly, which I insisted was the normal way, except that there was a special rule where if you were the banker, you could take any money you wanted from the bank at any point in time. You could also take someone's property if you made them cry about it.
Adriene. Oh my god. Because in my house, I'm an only child, we played very few board games. Like one year my grandmother gave us Scrabble and my father was like, don't open that. My mom is a writer and an editor, grammar person professionally, and my dad has not been formally diagnosed, but my dad has dyslexia. It's like that's what you're describing. And so he was like, put that Scrabble box away. And he played Monopoly with me one time, and I ended up in tears, sobbing, because he won. And he was like, because I can't watch you cry, we can't do this anymore.
That's like kind of a sweet sentiment.
Yeah, I played a lot of board games by myself, but I think my dad was like, this is traumatic for me as well, and I don't want to do it anymore.
I once invented a way to play all of my board games at once. So it was, you started on the Monopoly board and every tile took you to a different board game, and it was like a portal where you would get sucked into like the game of life, and you'd have to make it a certain amount in the game of life, but then you'd get like knocked into Sorry. It was like Everything Everywhere All at Once, the board game, but I made all the rules and I always won.
Oh, I love this so much. I have been having this fascination with board games lately, and I want to make some kind of art out of it.
I'm writing a board game right now with my friend.
Oh my god, tell me everything.
I can't because it's a secret,
Yeah,
but
okay.
lots of like fun, weird, creative things happening in my life that I never really anticipated.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
But
man.
I just love collaborating because and collaborating always reminds me of you and Brandon because like you two were the first biggies, and I miss you literally all the time.
I miss you so much.
If we were writing a Bailey School Kids book, it would be like, AI doesn't write essays.
Yeah. This whole strike and doing this podcast at the same time, I keep thinking about a pivotal picture book that I had, which was Click Clack Moo, Cows That Type.
Yes, I remember
which is
that one.
All about a strike and labor. And my mom is also an expert in Soviet studies, so I feel like I've just
wild
been getting ready this whole time.
I've been doing this fun little thing where I've been not writing, even though I should, and then I go in my head, I was like, we're on strike. Am I a member? No.
But we're on strike.
Is that what strike means?
Yeah.
No. Listen, I'm surviving
in
this cold, hard world. Dude, I want to be a dead body so badly. Like, not IRL, like in a TV show.
On a TV show. And I mean, you're in the right place for it. There's lots of dead people shows in New York.
They film Law and Order SVU right outside my house. It was very annoying because they are like here all the time and they're like, my building is the FBI. And I was like, no, I'm just trying to go get tacos.
Yeah.
But they were filming Dead City.
Okay.
The Walking Dead spinoff show that's coming out right in front of my street. I went to the store for corn tortillas, and because I am eco queen, I didn't get a bag, so I was just like holding these corn tortillas, and I turned the corner onto my block, and there are, I shit you not, 100 people just laying like they're dead in the streets, and there's just fog rolling in, and I turn, and I'm visibly shook. A PA comes running over, it's like, it's fake, but you're in our shot. And I was like, that's my apartment. And they're like, okay, just don't step on any of the actors. And they had me step over the background actors who were dead. And I was just holding this bag of tortillas trying to get to my apartment building in a fucking mist of fog. I was like, what is happening?
And because SAG is on strike, all I can think about is like, how much were those people paid?
I know. How much was the person that I stepped over with a bag of tortillas paid? Because it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. And I wonder, because you say, you know, there's a field of dead bodies, and then I do have to remember, like, no, those are all living people who like have a brain that's going on, that are saying, like, I'm laying on the floor.
I'm laying on the New York City street, and it was wet.
Ah!
I think they like hosed it down to make it cleaner. But the only thing I want to touch less than the New York City sidewalk is the New York City sidewalk with water on it.
Yeah.
When they film like Law and Order SVU, they'll do like a police chase scene, and they have PAs standing on the corner holding signs that's like, this is not real police activity, we're filming.
That's really good. I'm really glad they do that.
This industry is crazy. We all make money either dressing up and playing pretend or helping people dress up and play pretend.
Yeah.
Right now I'm working at an advertising agency, and we do like a lot of purpose-driven advertising and content creation. And it's one of those things where like, I know I'm not saving lives. Like, I'm not like a doctor, but it's unfortunate because when something like Roe v. Wade being overturned happens, my job kicks into high gear, and everyone's like, aren't you glad we don't just advertise for hot dogs? Meanwhile, I'm crying about the rights of people with uteruses being taken away. And I'm like, okay, I'm coming up with an activation.
Yeah, hot dogs won't do that to you.
Hot dogs will not do that to you. And sometimes I wish that my job was a little sillier than it was.
Yeah. The entertainment industry is deeply, deeply silly at all times.
Yeah. And I do absolutely, like, people will probably disagree with me on this. I consider advertisement the entertainment industry 100%.
There's like, it's an entire part of it. How do people see movies if not through advertising? We'll take it back to the book.
Okay.
How do you feel having read it again? How did it measure up to your memories? How do you feel emotionally coming off the process?
I closed this book and I was like, that was a wild ride. I also think we should have more illustrations in books. There's something about the like unhinged hijacking of your imagination that a picture provides, where I'm like, well, I guess that is what Eddie looks like.
Yeah.
Also, because of the illustrations are like a pencil style black and white sketch, I imagined the whole thing in black and white, except for when they said red. There are just some places in the book that are so redundant. It's like her in her red dress with her red hair walks over to the red stool and sits down in her red dress, and her red dress touches her knees. I was like, do you think she's wearing red? But anyway, I walked away from it still craving heart-shaped hamburgers. This will always remind me of cherry jello and vice versa. I don't know that I'd read this to my kid.
Yeah.
This one, I'm honestly walking away with a unhealthy curiosity about reading all the other ones.
I'm slowly working through the entire Wizard of Oz series. That shit's crazy.
I love the Wizard of Oz. Have you gone to the one where like the queen has different heads?
Yes. That's the third one.
That shit is demented. But also I wish I had that.
Have you seen Return to Oz?
No.
Oh my God. They have her in it.
Oh, okay.
It's I think it's on Disney. It came out in the 80s. Horrifying children's movie. Terrifying.
Okay. I'll definitely have to watch that. I need to watch that because I'm going down kind of like a Wizard of Oz rabbit hole because I've fallen into I don't know if it's technically a conspiracy or if it's just a theory or opinion. I won't get into that rabbit hole. But Barbie, the new Barbie movie is supposedly kind of modeled after Wizard of Oz-esque.
I'm so excited about that. I follow the Oz vlog, who's a Wizard of Oz historian. Um,
Oh my God.
Yeah,
That is the most you sentence I've ever heard.
Because she's a lot like my mom, and her house looks a lot like what my mom does with Girl Scout memorabilia. Absolutely.
Small aside, did you ever get your Girl Scout pilot anywhere?
No, not yet.
But it's so good.
Thank you.
This is the official plug for your pilot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I have things I've been cooking that I need to do something with, but also I've been really deep into the world of like slam poetry and songwriting. Yeah.
Wow.
Which has been a little wild.
One thing that I admire so deeply about you is that we went to entertainment school together, and you finished and said, I'm going to do something else. And advertising is in that, but that is one of the bravest things I think I've ever heard anyone do. And
dude, sometimes I lay awake at night being like, should I be in LA? And I love and like absolutely adore the people who I went to school with who are out there doing it. Like nothing has made me more happier than like watching your journey and seeing like this sort of like out of pocket development of you being an actor, which is just like wild to me. But I'm so glad I'm not in LA. First of all, just knowing me, instant Coke addiction.
Okay, yeah.
Instant. So LA is not for me. I just realized like I love writing so much, and I do not want to have to use it as a utility to live. And so I've found that doing other things and being creative in other ways has actually let me do so much more writing. And I still hold out hope that one day I'll like make a movie or something.
I think that's been such a huge thing that I've had to learn since coming here, is that it's the job won't love you back, and you have to keep things for yourself. And so it's, when I started this process, I've had the idea for like a year or so, but when I started in May, I just sat myself down and said, this is not about numbers. It's not about success. It's not about ads or money. It's about, I want to talk about something fun with my friends and have fun and have this be mine. And I don't think I'm realizing until maybe right now, like how expansive that can be of having something that is just yours.
Yeah. And I think it's a really interesting topic to pick for a podcast that is supposed to just be yours, because there's just something about revisiting your childhood mind and the things you were reading and doing that kind of remind me, at least, that I never knew what the fuck was happening. I still don't, and I might never. And that's okay. Like, I've been working on accepting the fact that life is crazy and things change so fast. Like, so fast. Like, at any point, you could find out that your lunch lady is Cupid. And what I think the book does a good job of, to just, like, really be on theme, is sometimes you find out the lunch lady's Cupid and it caused a lot of fucking drama for 4 days, and then you move on with your damn life.
Dadey. Yeah.
It's like sometimes your teacher's a vampire, but you know what? You still got to do elementary school.
Yeah. I do think they are probably extremely like tough and resilient kids who have,
I would like
gone
to
through
read
so much.
The Bailey School kids, like their therapy logs when they're 35.
Or like what are they up to in high school?
Well, that's Stranger Things, right?
Yeah. Oh no, that's Buffy. That's the show that raised me. That's my core personality. That's what that is. That's Buffy.
Oh, Buffy. So good. I just want someone to like come down from the clouds and offer me a role in something really camp and ridiculous. Like, I want to wear like a prosthetic face.
Yeah.
And like be goopy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think one of the things about the Bailey School kids that like sticks with me is just like the naming device of like Cupid Doesn't Flip Hamburgers. And I was thinking about when I was rereading it, I was like, oh, I think we should just name every movie that's sort of like sci-fi or monster or mythical like this. Like Shape of Water is just like fish don't fall in love.
Yeah. It's extremely effective. And the illustration, like you talked about, very transporting. there's a big world here going on, and I want a map of Bailey
I
Town.
want to know what the bank policies are.
Yeah.
I feel like I want to know like more about like who's the mayor.
Mhm.
Do they have the drive-through banks with the tubes that go?
Yeah. I love those things.
I love that. Every neurodivergent person loves the banks with the tubes that go swoosh.
Oh man,
I
can we
would read this
Mhm.
book again stoned.
Oh yeah.
I love you.
I love you. Do you have anything you want to plug as we end the episode?
Yeah, I have been really just like having a wonderful time being like a creative person with these two guys I met. They have a band called Limestone Love Seat, and they have an EP coming out soon. And it's just been like the highlight of the last few months to work on the album art, to work on their band logo. I just went out to see them and take photos of them playing. And I realized that like I love music, and I wrote the lyrics to a song that will be coming out, not on this EP, but maybe the next one or possibly the one after that sometime in fall. But it just opened my brain to like a whole new sort of way of creating. So if anyone wants to be super cool and check out Limestone Love Seat on Instagram and see their music when it drops and see my designed covers, I would love you very much.
Oh my God, I'm tearing up. I'm so proud of you and I'm so happy for you. Oh my
Thank
God.
you.
You do such amazing things. And
I
you do them
know.
so well. I know.
I know. No,
You're
I've
like,
been on this like crazy affirmation thing where I'm like, you can't hate yourself if you
yeah.
just keep saying you love yourself. And it kind of works.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of inner child work in this podcast,
Yeah.
especially because I started it right as I was coming off of The Artist's Way.
There's something so real about being in the self-help section of a
Mhm.
Barnes and Noble because your friend told you you were depressed
Yeah.
and all you know is enough to believe them.
Yeah. Every day I think like I can't do this industry and I can't do this career. And then I do have to sit down and be like, 3 people that I idolized when I was in college think I've got something going for me. So it's rude of me to doubt their judgment.
Yes. Also, you forgot to include me on that
Yeah,
list
that's true.
because
Well, also idolized in college. Yeah.
you idolized me and I idolized you.
Mhm.
It's how it worked.
Yeah.
That's called the magic of friendship, baby.
I'm really intrigued by the idea of a Bailey School D&D or like board game now of having
Right?
to figure
Wouldn't
out.
that be fun?
Well, I
Like
guess that's yeah.
a
Yeah,
guess who
yeah.
slash clue.
Mhm.
It's like
Okay.
it was the teacher in the PE room with the fangs.
Oh, now we have another project to do together.